Troops. They all have a purpose, even if it's at lower town halls or within a niche strategy. None of them are completely useless. But let's be real, some troops are nowhere near as good as others and struggle to remain relevant. Today, we're taking a look at those troops, the ones that are considered the worst by many, have low usage rates, or simply those that become irrelevant later in the game. So with that being said, let's get right into it.
Let's do this.
Goblins. Goblins are great, and if you're at the lower town halls, it's practically the best single troop for collector farming. But keyword, lower town halls. Well, I guess that's like 3 words, but whatever. The higher you go in town halls, the more you'll realize that these goblins can't survive shit, man. You start having to drop so many to the point where you'd be better off using other troops like the baby dragon, for example. Don't get me wrong, the goblins never go out of style. As for collector farming, it's kind of the best you got for a while, and even at higher town halls, goblins are decent for checking for traps and stuff like that because they're fast and they're only 1 housing space. But the fact is, as soon as you unlock those sneaky goblins, you will never look back, and that's exactly why it's on this list. The sneaky goblins are undoubtedly way better than the regular ones in every possible way. Not only do they go invisible for the first 5 seconds, they're stronger, can take more hits, and are so easy to use. All you need to do is drop 1 per collector and about 3 for storage. You can't even get the damn town hall with them. You definitely can't do that with regular goblins. I mean, you probably could, but I don't even think I want to put that to the test. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Goblins get replaced by their super troop version. It is the second most boosted super troop, and it's pretty obvious why. Super Giant. I think the Super Giant is a pretty decent troop. Even at higher town halls, it's a good tank, and the fact that it does increase damage to walls makes him a great choice for smash attacks. However, the Super Giant is not used much. It actually came in tied with the Super Valkyrie in these usage charts, so yikes. Imagine being tied with the Super Valkyrie. It all kind of just boils down to the only instances where you'd want to use the Super Giant is if you think it would be better than the Golem or Ice Golem to attack a particular base. It is a bit niche and base dependent, and that's what makes it not useful all of the time. But not only that, they are also prone to splash damage more because they have less HP than other tanks. Basically, more doesn't equal better. They can die easily if you don't know what you're doing, and if they're taking so much damage from splashed buildings, I mean, they're gonna go away. Also, its ability to destroy walls becomes less important the higher you go in town halls, so that's that. The fact is, other tanks will almost always be a better option, or I should say a safer option, and that's why they're rarely used. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day, but if the Super Giant was the Electro Giant from Clash Royale, it could have been way better. And we see that now with the Electro Titan. It ended up becoming a pretty decent troop for the higher town halls. Wall breakers. Okay, if this was a video about the best troops for lower town halls, this will be up there with some of the greatest. Wall breakers are essential to attacks inside of Clash of Clans. You need them to break walls, and there's really nothing to assist you with that until you get to Town Hall 8, where you unlock the Earthquake spell and Earthquake boots for the Barbarian King. But even with those 2 things, the wall breakers remain the cheapest and easiest way to break walls at those lower town halls. However, the wall breakers begin to experience a bit of a fall off around Town Halls 10, 11, and 12 for several reasons. First, around Town Hall 10 is when you start needing to bring 3 wall breakers for a single wall rather than 2, and this can quickly add up in camp space that you have available down there, which is only like what, 200? Also, there's the fact that you're now able to get a siege machine in your clan castle starting at Town Hall 10, so if you request something like a wall breaker or log launcher, a lot of the time it is going to be far more effective to do that rather than bringing so many damn wall breakers. Town Hall 10 is basically the turning point for wall breakers, but even more so at Town Hall 11 when you unlock super troops. The super wall breakers, despite their housing space being 4 times more than a regular one, are far superior and more reliable. There's a reason why they are the most boosted super troop in the game. Then at Town Hall 12, you can make your own siege machine, so even if you bring an empty one with you, you're set. Basically, walls begin to feel useless at some point as more and more methods of dealing with them are added to the game. And unfortunately for the wall breakers, they quickly get outclassed. Of course though, I don't mean mean the wall breakers are completely useless. Even I still use it every now and then, but it does feel very situational. Barbarian. The face of Clash of Clans. It's kind of ironic because later in the game, the only place you see him is in the app logo. The Barbarian, like all troops, is decent at lower town halls, mostly in strategies like Barch and G-Barch. It works perfectly fine for like 75% of the town halls. However, much like any troop with low housing space, they are very weak against splash and AoE damage. And unfortunately for the Barbarians, a lot of defenses at higher town halls focus on that type of damage. It doesn't matter if you have 50, 100, 300 barbarians, the simple fact is, they can't survive squat. The firepower of most defenses up there is simply too much for the barbarians. So by the time they make it to a damn building, they're already dead. Because of this, at a certain point of the game, they begin to fall off, much like wall breakers and regular goblins. At least archers can still snipe buildings with the bit of range they have, so I'd still say those are useful throughout the entire game, but as you can see, the barbarians are not the same. But you definitely don't want to ignore the barbarians. The barbarians that spawn from the king's barbarian puppet equipment are pretty decent, so if you're going to be using that, it's worth all the elixir and time, because as you may know, the level of the barbarians that spawns is the level of it in the laboratory. Same goes for the super barbarians, pretty decent at higher town halls, so you should be upgrading the regular barbarians if you want to use any of those two. Super miner. Not the clan capital one, the home village super troop. Being inspired by a Clash Royale card doesn't always mean it's gonna translate well in Clash of Clans, and I feel like the super miner is a perfect example of this. When it was released, this troop was overhyped to the max, but soon after, players started to realize, no, it's not as powerful as YouTube videos made it out to be. Who would have thought? It turned out not to be so much different from using regular miners. It's 4 times the housing space, but not quite 4 times the damage. So what's the point? In most situations, it's either as good as the regular miner, so you might as well use that, or it gets completely outshined by other troops, so you might as well not even bother. Now, that extra HP does allow them to survive longer, so they are quite beefy, but because of that big jump in housing space, it's hard to consider the trade-off worth it. Then there's the ability. Back to that Clash Royale analogy from earlier, yes, it works in that game because the Mighty Miner is usually heading to one of 3 towers that you gotta blow up, but in Clash of Clans with over 100 buildings, sometimes it doesn't even hit anything. The Super Miner can be seen in some niche attacks like Super Miner Blimp, however outside of that it doesn't have a place in the meta and most people don't even touch it. At least it's fun to use though, so sometimes I'll boost it to mess around. Valkyrie. Much like many troops on this list, at lower town halls, the Valkyrie is pretty decent, not gonna lie. Mass Valkyries with heal spells are kind of like mass hogs or mass miners. Drop them all, heal them, and forget about them, you know? They do some pretty nice damage when they get in between buildings and can take a few hits before going down. Like I said, they're pretty decent. When people say the Valkyrie sucks, they really mean above town hall 10 or so. So what makes the Valkyrie so bad, and why is she even on the list? Well, for starters, town halls just get stronger over time with new defenses like Infernos, Eagle Artillery, Scatter Shots. You get the gist of it. And while troops usually get stronger with the defenses, usually, the Valkyrie doesn't scale as good as you think, and so with much better and beefier defenses, she dies a lot, and very easily actually. She is pretty dang squishy and susceptible to all the splash damage and area damage in the higher town halls. So much that other troops that can survive such firepower with ease begin to outclass her. Valkyries also tend to struggle with walls, something that a lot of other troops have no problem dealing with or don't need to at all, like the Electro Dragon. But even with ground armies, you're almost always gonna have something that can do range damage or bypass walls, like bowlers, yetis, hogs, miners. There are so many other options that you're better off using than the Valkyrie. But then probably the most important factor is the type of bases that the Valkyrie excels at. Compact bases. Bases with buildings bunched up together with no space and minimal or no walls in between. These style of bases were incredibly popular many years ago, and actually that's when the Valkyries were most popular. However, ever since the Electro Dragon became meta, bases have evolved away from that compact style base, making the Valkyries very situational and base dependent. But even if you needed to attack a compact base, you're probably better off using the Electro Dragon because they bypass walls, they're stronger, their chain attacks are better than the Valkyries' targeting system, and their AI. It's more predictable than the Valkyries. A rework is what the Valkyrie needs. Buffs in the past have made her too OP, which is why she's been kept relatively weak since then. However, with the recent hero equipment update, they've been seeing a slow comeback at the upper town halls, specifically at Town Hall 16, but still not as easy to use as other armies up there. Super Valkyrie. The Super Valkyries have the same issues we just discussed about the regular Valkyries, but instead of 8 housing space, they're 20. For 12 more housing space, what are you really getting? Well, it's more HP, more damage, slightly faster attacking, she can survive a spring trap, and drops a rage spell when she's taken out. You know, just like a lumberjack from Clash Royale. The main problem with the Super Valkyrie though is not necessarily the housing space or the stats, it's just that it doesn't improve on the main issues the normal Valkyrie has. Unpredictable AI, and there just being way better options. The Super Valkyrie is essentially a higher level Valkyrie with more housing space, with an ability that kind of sucks. The Rage Spell. It could come in handy when it does drop where you need it, but because the Valkyrie has really dumb AI sometimes, it could be nowhere near your main push, thus raging unimportant troops or nothing at all. Of course though, it's not like it never works in your favor, but it's simply not worth the gamble, and there are far more reliable troops. All in all, the Super Valkyrie could be way better, but right now, I'd pass on it. There's a reason why it consistently ranks as the least boosted super troop. So guys, that wraps it up. That's my list of the worst troops in Clash of Clans. Like I said throughout the entire video, it's not like these troops are horrible, but a lot of the time you're better off using something else, or they become completely irrelevant in late game. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'm sure I missed a couple of troops that some would consider the worst. I'm sure I included some that you use every day, but let's hear it down below. As always, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, Havoc Gaming out. Peace!